Welcome to Travel Like a Local, a travel series diving into the fascinating world of Japanese travel guides. In Japan, there are so many magazines and books aimed at helping Japanese people explore. I grabbed some of the most interesting looking Japanese travel guides, all aimed at domestic tourists. We're going to dive right into them and see what hidden gems we can uncover. So whether you're living in Japan, a regular visitor, or researching for your first trip, make sure to hit that subscribe button to join me on new adventures each video. Today's route is from this Kyoto walking guide I read on my Kindle. There are 44 walking routes which I browsed through but couldn't really decide. So in the end, I'm starting from number 1 again. This route is for Kodaiji and covers a major tourist hotspot. There are 8 stops, and according to this guide it takes around 4 hours, walking 5.6 kilometers, 7,017 steps, and spending 2,900 yen. After reading these numbers, I was a bit worried. Last time I followed one of these guides, the steps and distance were totally wrong. They were half what I ended up walking. If you haven't watched that video, please check it out in the description below. So when I realized it was 7,000 steps, which could really be 14,000 steps, I got a bit worried about my stamina. But I'm always up for a challenge and was really interested by the 8 stops. Let's take a quick look at where we're headed. 1. Yasaka Jinja. 2. Ishibekouji. 3. Ryozen Museum. 4. Kodaiji. 5. Choraku-ji. 6. Maruyama Park. 7. Chion-in. 8. Shoren-in Monzeki. The map is here on the next page, so let's just zoom in a little bit to take a good look at our route for the day so we can get going. So I took the bus to our starting point and walked a few minutes to the shrine. When I first moved to Japan, I lived in Kyoto for 2 years, and Yasaka Jinja and the adjoined park Maruyama Park are 2 of my favourite places in the city. I think these stalls are here early for spring blossom season. My husband and I went on one of our earliest dates for Hanami there, and we both still feel really fondly about this place. I love all these lanterns around the stage, which is called Buden. The lanterns light up at night, so if you're in the area, I definitely recommend coming to take a look. At the back of Yasaka Jinja there is a smaller shrine called Willow, and I read in my guidebook that if you put a few drops of this water on your face, you'll become beautiful inside and out. Now we're going to exit via the east gate, which is different than the one we entered from. And you can see just outside the gate there is a cherry blossom tree in bloom. You'll notice over the course of the day, it is too early for cherry blossoms, so whenever there is a tree that is blooming, there is a big crowd around it trying to take pictures with it. Anyway, we are quickly approaching stop number 2, Ishibekouji. Now unfortunately this one is going to be a little bit anticlimactic because you cannot record in this area. Now I have to say, despite this sign, there was a few people still doing photo shoots. That aside, this place was well worth a visit, and surprisingly I'd never even been there before. It's one of the few places on this whole day where I managed to feel some peace, probably because you're not allowed to take pictures. So now we continue walking to stop number 3, which is the Ryozen Museum, but on the way, just take a little look. This is the madness that is Ninenzaka. I'm glad our tour itinerary today has skipped that part. So let's continue up this hill to the Ryozen Museum. So here it is, we made it to the museum, but I have made the decision not to go inside. We cannot record inside, and according to some reviews on the internet, there is little to no English signage. So I don't think this is a stop for international tourists. So heading up the hill, let's head to our next stop. On the way, there is a lovely view over the city, and then a massive flight of stairs to go down. But even here, halfway down, you are rewarded with a beautiful view of the pagoda. But we're going to head up now to Kodaiji Temple. At the end of this road, it's back to madness. This is the really busy area. You can see there's a Peter Rabbit shop and a Ghibli shop. It's a really popular area for tourists. And the Tatami Starbucks is just up the road too. There is an entrance charge, pay your fee and head on inside. Now this was my first experience that started a bit of a pattern for the day. Construction work. There was a lot of construction work going on throughout the course of the day. Now this was a bit of a strange visit to me because I have definitely been here before, but I had absolutely no memory of any of it. So it was like rediscovering a whole new place. So let's explore together. As you may have heard in the background, there were a lot of crows in this temple, some of which were definitely fighting. I saw one dive bomb the other in a tree. It was very strange. But at the end of the pathway there is a small bamboo forest. So for those of you who are coming and have a short amount of time or can't make it to Arashiyama for any reason, just visit Kodaiji. You can still take the photo you want to take and it's less crowded, so it's probably going to be much easier. There is a small tea house at the end. And that's the temple, so let's keep moving on to our next temple. We will pass through Maruyama Park briefly and head to Choraku-ji. Choraku-ji is another temple that I've never even heard of, never mind visited, so I'm really excited about this stop. This area is really popular for people to rent kimonos for the day and take a lot of photos. So wherever you go, it feels like somebody's doing a photo shoot for sure. So we are making our first pass through Maruyama Park. We'll exit via the back to get to the next temple. But you can just see how crowded it is, and it's only going to get worse for cherry blossom season. The further towards the back of the park you go, generally the quieter it is. The exception obviously is this one tree. As I mentioned earlier, it's early for cherry blossom, so if there is a single tree blooming, you can guarantee there will be a crowd. So up we go through the back and up these stairs to Choraku-ji. And on the way you can see this very wise photographer has taken her clients to take pictures here because there's just so many less people. So here we go, it says on this sign that the entrance fee is 800 yen. And construction work, again, massive amounts of construction work here. As you can see on the desk here, it says you pay the entrance fee here. If no one is here, push the bell. I pushed the bell 3 times and waited for nearly 5 minutes, but no one came, so we will try again on the way out. The whole back area was really mossy and green and beautiful. there were still more stairs up the back. So I decided we had to take a look, right? What's up there? More bamboo trees, but less of a forest, it's just on the one side. And we climbed all the way to the top to find a cemetery. So obviously I didn't spend a lot of time or film a lot here. To be respectful, I took a good look at the view and headed back down. Rang the doorbell twice more, still no one came, so I just left my 800 yen on the table and headed back down to Maruyama Park. It seems like more people have figured out my secret and moved towards the back of the park to avoid the crowds. And by now, I was pretty tired actually. So I decided to take a little break, have my protein shake, and enjoy a random magician doing magic in the park. If you're wondering, my protein shake flavor is sakura. I'm obsessed with sakura flavors. I released a video showcasing some of the ones, but I've still been eating them even since. Please check out the video if you haven't already. So let's head over to Chion-in, our next stop. Yet more stairs, let's climb all the stairs. The little boy next to me was counting. I think he said there were 70, but it felt like more. And here we go, Chion-in. Again, a really wide space, a bit like Yasaka Jinja, but much bigger obviously. But for that reason, it didn't really feel overcrowded, which was quite nice. Feels more grand than Yasaka Jinja. Much bigger, many more buildings. And again, we're gonna exit through a different gate than the one we entered from. And actually, I've been here before. This is my favorite entrance, if it's possible to have a favorite entrance. You'll see what I mean when we get there, but it's really beautiful. Just the colors and the light and the view over the city. I think it's a really beautiful pathway down. You can see all the moss on the wall and the trees. Oh, and you can see another cherry blossom tree. Rest assured, there was a photo shoot happening underneath. So we are on to our final stop of the day, Shoren-in Monzeki. This is another place that I don't think I've been to before. In fact, I don't even know where it is. You can see here I'm looking at all the doorways and getting really confused. But no, we keep going and there is a much bigger entrance. And through the doorway, our favorite construction theme of the day. Now, I have to admit that I messed up here. I saw this sign that said no recording, and I decided not to go inside because I thought it was just the building. But it turns out once you go through the building, there is a garden outside that I have seen online since, that I totally should have entered and just didn't. I was getting confused. It was the end of the day. I was pretty tired by this point too. Now this one technically isn't a stop, but the path did specifically run this way. And what I mean is we ended a bus stop and there was a bus stop much closer than the one we end at. The path has purposely led us down this walkway to enjoy the willow trees. Finally, we make it to the end of the pathway and to the bus stop, our final stop to get home for the day. So let's compare the numbers. Time. I started at 9:50 and ended at 1:20, so it took me 3.5 hours. But I stopped for a 15-minute protein shake break, which wasn't in the itinerary, so I need to discount that, so that's 3 hours and 15 minutes. Then I skipped the museum and Shoren-in Monzeki, which the guide allowed 1 hour and 15 minutes for in total. So I need to add that back on for a fair comparison. That comes to 4.5 hours, which is 30 minutes longer than the guide's estimation. Honestly though, I felt like I was rushing and going pretty quickly, so I think if you were to stop for a proper lunch and take your time a little bit more, this route could easily take much longer. Distance. I forgot to record my starting kilometers, but checking the app, it seems I'd done 0.4 kilometers before starting the route and 8.74 kilometers by the end, which is a total of 8.3 kilometers, which is almost 3 kilometers more than the guide. Steps. My starting steps was 622 and ending steps were 11,817, which makes a total of 11,195 for the route, 4,178 more than the guide. Now money. Since I skipped out on some stops, I spent way less than the guide price. Just 600 yen for Kodaiji and 800 at Choraku-ji. But I did check the entrance fees to the missing stops online, and it seems the guide was accurate at 2,900 for the lot. So yet again, the numbers are way off and not to be relied upon. I think the time is doable if for some reason you want to follow strictly the time allowances, but I really don't know how they can underestimate the distance and the steps so much. I really enjoyed the fact that this route highlighted some new places to me, especially as someone who thinks they know Kyoto pretty well. It also incorporated my personal favorite spots such as Maruyama Park, Yasaka Jinja, and the north gate of Chion-in. I think it was pretty well balanced, avoiding some of the busiest areas and taking some quieter routes along the way, like Ishibekouji and the route back from the museum. I also thought it was good to include Kodaiji, which has a nice bamboo forested area, which is much more convenient for time-strapped visitors to feel the Arashiyama experience without the crowds. The very first thing I would change about this route is the start and end points. Starting and ending at bus stops is such a bad idea in Kyoto. I know they're often much better located for accessing the sites, but the congestion is next level. It's worse than I've ever seen it before. And if I'm totally honest, it really ruined my starting mood. I waited almost 30 minutes for the bus, then to be squeezed in like sardines and have to ride 20 minutes before anyone started getting off. With a little adjusting to make the route shorter in other places, I'd probably start at Gion Station and end at Higashiyama Station. Next, I'd obviously take off the museum. It's probably a fantastic stop for fluent Japanese speakers, but for most international tourists, it'd be a waste. Then in regards to the guide, I was missing any kind of cafe or restaurant recommendations. The route overview page mentions 3 places that you can eat dessert, but other than that, food recommendations are all but missing. As a tourist, overpriced, poor quality food is something that really concerns me, so I was really sorry that was missing. One last thing I would like to say is that throughout the day, I saw quite a lot of poor behavior from many tourists. People would stand right next to no photography signs doing whole photo shoots, and then in Maruyama Park I even saw a woman instruct her young child to pee against a tree in the middle of the park when there are perfectly good public toilets at the entrance. Now, as for the English recommendations available online, Yasaka Jinja, Chion-in are both mentioned very regularly, and Kodaiji is also sometimes mentioned, but Shoren-in was mentioned on one website. On that website, he specifically recommends it for being quieter than other nearby temples, so I'm really sad that I missed that one. Choraku-in is mentioned on no websites, and I can kind of understand why. It was an expensive visit for what it was. It's nice and quiet though, and perhaps once the construction is done, it will be much better. As with the Kobe situation, most itineraries packed a lot of places into a day and cut this whole area down into just a morning. I think this could be just a recurring problem since time available is inherently different between international and domestic tourists. So that's about it for what I thought, but please let me know what you thought in the comments. Where on this itinerary would you like to go? Where would you have skipped? Is there anywhere missing? And if there's anywhere that you'd like to see me go in the future, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like, and if you want to see more like this, please subscribe for future videos. See you in the next one.